All right. So real briefly, just today, there was just a couple funny things I saw while I was going around town. Um, I took my son to Kung Fu, and when I was leaving to go run some errands while he was there, I went to the crosswalk to cross the street. It's a one way street, pretty busy because it's around rush hour. There was a woman standing there next to me. She had like a small suitcase, rolling suitcase of some kind, and she seemed very distressed. As the cars, there was a crosswalk, but the cars weren't stopping. She said, all of a sudden, she said, "Prejudiced fuckers," and seemed really upset. And I'm kind of a little surprised by this at this point. We keep waiting because it's just car after car, no one's stopping. And she says, she finally says again, she says, "Obviously, they just hate fucking Asians." Well, I'm sitting there thinking, well, I don't know if that's true because there's this Asian lady standing here, but also me. And I am not an Asian at all. Um, though my brother and sister are both Asian, they were adopted. But I'm not Asian. And, um, and I don't think they're stopping for me either. I eventually just kind of hurried across, there was a van a little ways down, but it wasn't in a bad spot, so I wasn't too worried. Um, which is kind of what you have to do sometimes, even at a crosswalk. People just don't stop, especially at rush hour when there's lots of traffic. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But it was weird because, this idea that these people aren't stopping for this woman, that she would think so strongly that it was because she's Asian, it strikes me as a little odd. Like, um, they're probably not stopping for you because they're not noticing you because they're busy, because it's rush hour, because you're not getting out there and just taking a leap of faith. And they're not stopping for me also, and I don't think it's because I'm a white man. um, I just think that people don't stop sometimes, and it's weird to internalize that so much that you think it must be a racism thing. And I think there is this sort of this woman, I should add, seemed like she probably had some mental health issues, and that's reinforced because this is very near the homeless shelter, this section of downtown, and so it seems likely to me that she was not fully 100% in her right mind. But then you start to see how that sort of mentality is internalized in a wider way through our perception, or through some people's perception of entertainment and everything else, where there are obviously legitimate concerns with race and diversity and sex, but then sometimes these are taken to this level that is so inexplicable that, like, you'd think that people aren't stopping because you're Asian. And obviously all these drivers driving by must hate Asian people. It's similar to, to thinking that every last little thing, all gamers are sexist or whatever else, that to find these monsters in every shadow. um the second funny thing I saw today was I was driving home later, and there was a man standing on the side of the street with a great big sign, and the sign said, "Vote fraud." It didn't say voter fraud. It just said vote fraud, like vote Trump or vote Clinton, but vote fraud. To my knowledge, there is no fraud running. Well, there's lots of frauds running, uh, but there's no specifically named fraud, an actual Mr. Fraud, Joe Fraud running in any race around here or around the country. Be a terrible name for a politician, though an honest one. Um, Vote fraud. Did he mean voter fraud? If so, did he mean to say something about it? Voter fraud is something that exists, though, in very small portions in the United States. It's much more popular in other areas. Was he making a statement? Did he just want people to be aware of voter fraud? Or did he genuinely mean you should vote fraudulently in this election? I do not know, and I wasn't about to stop to find out. Your guess is as good as mine. Anyways, uh, this is a new segment I'm working on, which is crazy people I see around town. Um, I think it could be interesting. No, and I'm not going to try to make fun of these people. That woman was obviously a very unhappy, very disturbed lady. I just think it was interesting to see. I've seen examples of racism. Like I said, my siblings are Asian, and I have seen, mostly a sort of soft, unintentionally cruel sort of racism towards them. And I very rarely, if ever, saw like in your face racism directed towards them. But I definitely saw many instances of sort of, I don't want to say well intentioned, but not necessarily like bad intentioned people who would just do, you know, hurtful things. Uh, and I still find that this notion that this lady couldn't cross the street because she was Asian totally ludicrous. Um, but maybe she'll vote fraud, and all will be well. Uh, anyways, I'm gonna go play music, and then maybe some video games, like I'm thinking maybe this one. You see that? God Eater 2. I didn't even know I was going to get this for review, but here it is. I'm kind of curious. So, more on that later. Thank you for watching. Peace.